G'day guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Boundary Riders podcast, and of course we have a lot to talk about today. We're going to be taking a look at some damning news regarding the new Tasmania team coming to the AFL. We're going to be having another huge trade update, as it seems every single minute we're getting a new trade rumour. The preview to the prelim finals, the bets of course from my brother who may not be here but he's still giving us the bets, and much more. So let's roll the intro and get straight into it. Welcome to the Boundary Riders podcast, your one-stop shop for all your AFL content needs.
He looks at his options, and Jack Ginnivan says, boys, you brought me to the club to do justice!
But this guy has flog written all over him.
From attack down, Reed sprints away from Petrarca, leaves him in his wake, takes a second bounce, takes a third. The sheer arrogance of Harley Reid. Finish the job, young man!
So let's get into the footy news from the week that was. So guys, like I mentioned in the intro, my brother isn't here. He just had work, so unfortunately he won't be here. But don't worry, I will cover the podcast. Now, it may be a little bit shorter today. Just had a bunch of stuff going on, but still get a pretty decent sized podcast for you guys. So we'll start with the Tasmania stuff because I thought it was quite interesting. So throughout the week, we did hear the news that Stephen King is going to be the Melbourne coach, which I think is a pretty good decision. And basically a lot of the news regarding that sort of the Melbourne job was surrounding everyone thought at first that Nathan Buckley had that job written basically in pen, pretty much on the signature almost, but apparently things didn't align and they've decided to go with Stephen King. Now, in the last few days, basically it's been pretty much almost a certainty that Nathan Buckley is going to be the next or the first Tasmania coach, and I think it's quite an interesting choice. I think it's an okay choice. We just have to wait and see how that goes. He's basically all but confirmed it. However, news has come out today, so Wednesday as I'm recording this, it looks like the Tasmanian Macquarie Point Stadium could be in a little bit of jeopardy. So according to Mitch Cleary, a major story coming out of Tasmania is the Tasmanian Planning Commission has recommended that the Macquarie Point Stadium should not proceed in a damning Devil's blow. In a statement, the stadium is too big for the site and the benefits it will bring are significantly outweighed by the disbenefits it creates. Now, I probably would first of all say I don't think this is going to have a impact on the team itself, on the fact that it will be coming. I think the team will come in 2028. I don't think that will be delayed. I feel like if it was going to be any sort of delay in this stage, we wouldn't see so much being pushed forward with the team. We've already heard in recent weeks that they're going to be having a VFL and VFLW team next year, and we're already expecting that a coach could actually be announced as soon as in the next couple of months or so, or Nathan Buckley we are expecting. So those two things I don't really expect to change, but I wouldn't be too surprised if there is some changes to do with the stadium. Now, I think we've all come to the conclusion now, most people anyway, that it needs a roof. Probably from the games that we saw throughout the season. It was not really great to see. What was that game down in Launceston between Hawthorn and Adelaide Friday night? It was like 2 degrees. It was freezing cold. No one really wanted to go. I think it kind of proved that we do need a roof on the stadium to, at very least, keep it somewhat acclimatized so people aren't going to the games every single second week to a Tassie game, getting absolutely either drenched or getting freezing cold and wanting to realize, well, why the hell would I sit in the freezing cold when I can sit in the calmness of my home, even in Tasmania? I'm sure they have heaters down there. I'm sure they've got to that evolution in the stage of life, but when they've stopped kissing their cousin. But anyway, I had to make that joke. I'm sorry. I mean, I had to. It was just sitting right there for me. But I don't think it has a dampener on the team because, like I said, there's been a lot of evolutions with the team as we've seen already. So I think the team will go ahead just as fine. The stadium will be an interesting one. So we've got, I think in recent years, we've had a redevelopment of one of the stadiums they use currently, Bellerive, I think it was. So they've got Bellerive and they've got York Park. So I think that's one of them is University of Tasmania Stadium. The other one is Blunston. Is it? No, it's not Blunston. Whatever it's called. That one of them was developed recently. So the AFL have been pretty adamant that they don't want to redevelop a stadium. They want to build a new one. So I think that's where it's going to kind of lie. And this development doesn't necessarily mean it's saying no, that it's not going to happen. It's basically just bringing down that their recommendation is that they don't go ahead. So my belief is it will go ahead. I don't think it's going to stop the development of the stadium per se. I don't really know the ins and outs of Tasmania itself. So if you are a Tasmanian local, I want to actually hear people's thoughts on this because I don't know anything about Tasmania, the politics and that. I don't really want to jump into it. I am planning on making some sort of video probably next year regarding the team, but at this stage I haven't really done a lot of research, so I don't want to say something stupid, which is kind of weird because a lot of the stuff I say on this podcast is me being stupid. But I just want to reiterate that I think the team will still go ahead. I don't think there's been any sort of indication from the AFL that they will not stop with the team going ahead. I think if they would have stopped, if anything was to have stopped the team at this stage, that we would have heard something by now. They wouldn't have gone ahead with what the team is at this moment. So if you're a Tasmanian local and you're disappointed thinking the team won't go ahead, my belief is the team will be fine. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. The stadium is an interesting point. I've always thought that it was too expensive, probably first off. When I've done the little bit of research that I have done regarding the Tasmanian team and the Tasmanian stadium, I kind of lean towards that they do need a stadium with a roof, and it's just probably where I lie is the expense of it. It seems at this point in time the stadium is originally it was quoted to be about 750 million. They've already blown that budget out to, I think it's 1.2 billion dollars. So that's nearly 500 million over budget at the moment, and that's not even considering, we're supposed to have this built in 2028, I believe, for 2029, I believe. That's my understanding. Again, do your own research, grain of salt. This is a person talking in a room that's in the back of the house. So, the research is not as good as maybe some other people, but I believe that's what it is at the moment. So I do believe the expense of it is definitely a lot, but I do think they will go ahead with it, and I think the team will go ahead as well. Now, on the coaching point of view, I think that Nathan Buckley will get the job. I think now it's pretty adamant now that he will be the coach of the Tassie Devils whenever they do come into the competition. We've already heard we obviously know that Brendan Gale's the lead guy there now as well, and I think it'll be announced pretty shortly. I think, even though this is Caroline Wilson saying this, she said it'd probably be the next month or two that they actually announce the head coach. So I think that they're going to be just basically going ahead with that, and I think Tassie is just going to continue on their merry way. I think they've already announced their VFL coach as well. So, but by all things, I think everything else is pretty well chugging along, except for the stadium, which is, I think, being a bit of an issue for most people for a lot of the, even announcement of the team. So we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. We'll move on though, and let's get to a little bit of trade news, I believe. So look, I'm basically just going to be covering every single trade rumor that's came out since the video that I put out on Monday and now. And my God, has there been so much trade rumors and stuff. Now, first of all, I want to bring up this little bit of trade news because I thought this was quite interesting. So, Cinch Footy quickly reported this, saying the AFL is considering introducing a sign-on bonus for free agents who join bottom 4 or bottom 6 clubs, according to Cal Toomey. Now, I think this is actually a good idea, but some people may have a bit of a concern saying, I don't know. Some people probably wouldn't like that, but I think we have to give some sort of incentive for players to join a team from the bottom 6 in the competition, free agents. Like, we've seen so many players, which we'll get to probably in a moment, how many people are leaving these bottom 6 clubs who are like really important players to just go and just say, no, fuck yeah, I'm done. And free agency, yes, you do get some compensation, but overall, sometimes the compensation is probably not really worth it, if we're being real, especially if you're losing such a pivotal player to your team. Now, probably with Oscar Allen's sake at West Coast, I think before this year, I think the club probably would have been sitting there thinking, we want a lot for this guy, a lot more than just a pick 2 up the top. But considering how poor he's been around the media this year, and how adamant he's pretty well been from the start of the season that he wants to go, and still wanting to be still being captain, which I think is a pretty bad move. I think they're pretty happy to get rid of him for pick 2, that probably pick 1 or pick 2 that the Eagles are going to get in the end. So yeah, but other ones we'll get to in a moment. But there are a lot of players that, 3 weeks ago I probably wouldn't have even considered them leaving, but now I'm probably on the wagon that these players are gone. So let's get to some rumors, shall we? Because it's just been a circus, hasn't it? First of all, a couple of requests. Malcolm Roses have requested a trade outside of the Gold Coast Suns. Hasn't picked a team as of yet, but the Swans and the Tigers are the front runners for him. Sam Draper's finally chosen the team he wants to go to, which is the Brisbane Lions. The Bombers are waiting to see on his compensation, how much they'll get back for him. And Sam Flanders from the Gold Coast Suns has also told his team that he wants to move to a different club in this off-season. He is contracted until the end of 2027, and the Gold Coast did put out a statement saying that he is a player that is still needed at the club, so we'll have to wait and see how that pays out. He has been linked to Carlton, St Kilda, Essendon, and Melbourne. My understanding is that Melbourne are the front runners at this stage. But Sam Flanders is on the outer at the Suns. Now to some rumours. Now this one was a bit of a crazy one when I first saw it, but I mean, if we look at last year, maybe not so crazy. So at this moment in time, Christian Petrarca, there was news from Tom Burrow saying that very delicately and cautiously, things are beginning to move on Christian Petrarca's front. Both parties are open to a trade, but neither wants to be seen as demanding a breakup. Now, Petrarca is not as adamant as he was in 2024 to move, but the Demons still see high value in him, and it's a bit of a watch. Now, it also, news has come to light that he is open to options outside of Victoria and will consider trades in a state, including Adelaide, the Gold Coast, and the Sydney Swans. Now, obviously, he does have the link with Alex Neil-Bullen, obviously a premiership teammate of the Adelaide Crows. Some people have believed that he could be linked to the Crows. Would be very surprised if he came to Adelaide, if I'm being honest. But that could be a move that he would potentially go for. I mean, just looking at personal life matters, I guess. It's a pretty nice place to live. A lot of wineries, food stuff seems to something he's sort of interested in. So he's in a lot of the promotions, in fact, for gather rounds the last few seasons. So wouldn't be too surprised if he moved down to Adelaide, to be honest. But we'll just have to wait and see. Sydney, I would like him at the Swans. I think Sydney need that little bit of grunt up forward, that little bit of X factor who would help out. I think he's very much in that Isaac Heaney mold that could be a match winner. And I think that they'd probably give the license for Isaac to play up forward more. But I don't think he'll go to the Swans, but we'll just have to wait and see. Now, this came out pretty much today when I'm recording this, that Cal Archie is set to request a trade from the Brisbane Lions to the Adelaide Crows, according to Cal Toomey from Gettable. This kind of surprises me. We'll have to wait and see if this is actually true. So you obviously take all these rumours with a huge grain of salt, but that really surprises me that Cal Archie would be looking to leave. Has been a pivotal player at the Brisbane Lions for so many years. Still pretty useful up forward, but maybe the Crows are offering him a bit more. I would believe the Crows have quite a lot left in their salary cap. They've already delisted a few players already, so we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. But very interesting one there, Cal Archie. Fremantle are going very hard for Judd McVie, to try and get him to the club. I think that Fremantle, that's probably the only player they've been linked to really this season. So I think they will go heavy for him, try and get some more defensive reinforcements, because I mean, the defense is already pretty solid anyway, but might as well try and top up back there. Zach Merritt, there was some news early on that the Crows joined the race for Zach Merritt, trying to get him there, but apparently it's been pretty much all but confirmed that if Merritt is going to leave Essendon, that he's going to be going to the Hawks. So good news there for Hawthorn fans, but Crows fans probably, they're still looking for that A-grade midfielder to help out with Jordan Dawson. Doesn't think it's going to be Zach Merritt, so wouldn't be too surprised now if the Crows go heavily into a Christian Petrarca type. Potentially a couple more, which we'll get to in a moment. Now, Charlie Curnow, one bit of news came out earlier in the week that the Swans were leading the race for him. That was according to Damien Barrett on Footy 9, I think it was Footy Classified it was on. It was reported on 10 Sport in Australia that the Gold Coast Suns have all but confirmed they are going to try and get Charlie Curnow, but neither Jed Walter or Ethan Reid would be as a part of that deal. Now, we did talk a moment ago that Sam Flanders was linked to the Blues. I think it'd be a nice add-on for a trade. Obviously needed more, but wouldn't be bad there for the Gold Coast. However, then Damien Barrett came out today on Triple M saying that in Charlie Curnow's ideal world, the list of rankings of what teams he wants to go to, it goes Geelong first, Gold Coast second, and Sydney third. So I think it was Monday night on Footy Classified, he said that Sydney were the front runners. Apparently now they're third. So who knows? There's so much delusion around this, so much smoke and mirrors. Who the heck knows where Charlie Curnow is going to be next year? I would be surprised if he's at the Blues now, to be fair. I would be very surprised. And I think Carlton desperately need to use this trade as something to build their team around. Harry Mackay, they've pretty much said that he's going to stay at this point. There's been no murmurings around Harry Mackay pretty much now. So I think Carlton have to be ballsy here. If it is for a Sam Flanders, if Sam Flanders wants to go to Carlton, you ask for Sam Flanders, you ask for a first round pick, you ask for a player, you maybe even ask for two players. You have the ball ball in your court. And clubs, I think, seriously now need to start playing hardball. If I was being honest, if Charlie Curnow wants to leave so bad, you've got 3 choices that you've picked from. The Blues should be picking the club that he that you can get the most out of. And I think clubs need to be more serious about it. There was a report, I think today or yesterday, regarding that people are saying that clubs should start saying to players that, you know, shouldn't have to ask for permission for a trade, that you just trade them. And I've probably not been in that camp, but I'm thinking now that if players are going to be so flippant in switching clubs like this, especially club captains, which are supposed to be your heartbeat of your clubs, to just leave pretty much behind the scenes. I think clubs need to be more ruthless too, and I think that's more than fair. If players are going to be this ruthless on their careers, which I think is probably fair enough, especially for the players that have been at clubs that have been unsuccessful and they won a premiership, by all means, I think they should be ruthless, probably looking for other clubs. But I think that the clubs should have the same warrants as well. They should be warranted to do the same thing. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. If I had to put my money on it right now on Charlie Curnow, where he's going to go, I'd like to say Sydney. For some reason, I feel like the Gold Coast. I think the Gold Coast have a bit more. I think he wants to be out of the Victorian bubble, to be honest. I'm surprised that Geelong are actually in front of this list, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. I just feel like the Gold Coast would be a good club for him, and I think that he would work well under Dimmer Hardwick and the Suns. So I'm going to go with the Gold Coast. I'd like to be Sydney. Bit surprised that Geelong are in front of this list, but Geelong are well and truly in the race. And they do want to look for probably a Jeremy Cameron replacement, even though he's probably got 3 or 4 more years. Jezza seems to not really be slowing down. They do kind of need to find someone to replace him, but interesting because Shannon Neal, of course, is just starting to develop. So what does that mean if Charlie Curnow comes in? Because you can't really play all 3 of them in my eyes. So definitely questions regarding that. Now moving to a couple of Swans players that could be on the outer. Robbie Fox was recently delisted from the Swans. Looks like the Giants are looking at him. Now the Giants have explored options for this is the 3rd Swans player they've looked at here, or former Swans player. We had Aaron Francis, we talked about in that video on Monday, and Joel Hamling a couple of weeks ago, we talked about that. So it looks like they are looking for more defensive reinforcements to replace Lee Kalia. Interesting. I've always been surprised that the Swans delisted Robbie Fox. I've always thought he was just struggled with injury this year. I think he's been an exceptionally good player for the Swans. Completely underrated. So very surprised that the Swans delisted him. I guess Sam Wicks probably took his spot from the team, which is maybe why they chose to delist him, but still surprising. And there is some news coming out from this is from Gettable, that Jack Buller from the Swans, who played a couple of games this year, showed some decent signs to forward, is seemingly could be requesting a trade to the Pies. So we talked about that in Monday's video as well, regarding him having information that he could be looking at Collingwood, offering him a 2-year deal. So it looks like that he may request a trade, and I'm pretty much in the same camp that I was in that video. I think that he should really explore his options here. The Swans, when they get back Logan McDonald next year, Joel Lombardi, looks like they're already starting to ramp up re-signing him, the Sydney Swans, because he's out of contract in 2026. Buller doesn't have a spot in the Sydney team, so he'd be going straight back to the VFL. So I think he should really be exploring his options. And if Collingwood are offering him 2 years, considering he's a mid-season draftee as well, like he is a player that would know that an AFL career is so precious. So he knows how precious it would be. So he'd probably be looking at it in a pretty fair and honest manner, thinking, pretty smart manner, seeing it, the fact that Collingwood probably have a spot there for a forward up for grabs. So I think they're not really. I think he's probably thinking in the smart manner that the Swans probably don't have that spot, and he probably wouldn't be in this team this year if it wasn't the fact that a couple of injuries to the Sydney Swans players. Now it was mentioned also on Gettable that Brody Mychek could be able to go the other way to the Swans, so he's still being linked to Sydney at times. Collingwood have probably got a bridge the gap. I think I've said a few times regarding his contract. North Melbourne are offering the most, it seems. So he's already got a premiership. He potentially could have a second one. He may actually miss this week through injury. I think he's going to be okay, but he could have a second premiership. So maybe if he does get his second premiership, more success isn't really the priority. Maybe it is just securing his future. So maybe North Melbourne could be in the race. I still have always thought that he would sign with the Pies, re-sign with the Pies, but we'll just have to wait and see how that plays out. Now, CJ or Jaff from Hawthorn, it looks like at this moment that he's being captured by the Blues. Looks like he's very interested in a potential move to Carlton. Obviously, that won't be decided until the off-season, but Hawthorn have a lot of eggs in all different baskets, of course, Zach Merritt being the biggest. So I wouldn't be too surprised if maybe CJ falls works out. I think it benefits both parties. Carlton need a rebounding defender who's exciting, run with the ball, pretty good user, and Hawthorn probably needs some capital on their side to get Zach Merritt's club. So I think overall that's probably a decent move. Bit of a surprising one here, Ned Reeves. It looks like he's actually set to stay at Hawthorn, which I'm a bit surprised by because he actually was picked in the VFL All-Australian team this year. And I thought that because both Collingwood and Carlton were looking at him and were pretty heavily linked, but it does seem now that he's deciding to stay with Hawthorn, so he's going to be trying to fight for that spot against Lloyd Meek. So I mean, good on him. I don't mind this move, but it's a bit surprising. I thought he would request a trade at the end of the season. Now after that, we get to Cal Wilkie. So this, I still don't really believe that he's going to be leaving the club, Cal Wilkie. But according to, I think it was Sam Edmund, he did say that Cal Wilkie reportedly took a phone call from Luke Beveridge. So who the hell knows what that means? Maybe he was just wishing him a good off season, but he could also have been offering him a mega deal. So take all this with a grain of salt. It was reported last month that Wilkie had been disillusioned. I love that word. It is the new word of the trade period, so we have to use it. Disillusioned with the direction of the football club. I still don't believe Cal Wilkie can leave, if I'm being real. I can't see a world where he's at the Bulldogs this year. Now, the Western Bulldogs desperately need defensive reinforcement, so Cal Wilkie would probably be one of the best key defenders in the game. So, good choice, good scouting from the Dogs. I just still can't see him leaving. I'd be very surprised. Now, Jack Steele has been linked to a couple of clubs throughout this season. I think it was linked to maybe going away for Kilda. He has been pretty adamant in saying that no, he's not going anywhere. He's the captain of the club, he's not going, and Ross Lyon was pretty adamant as well. Sam McClure is still speculating about the fact that Jack Steele won't be at the club next year. A couple of clubs have looked at him, he's waiting to see if there's a club looking at him. Sam McClure did link Essendon, which wouldn't be a bad move, but this is Sam McClure we're talking about. So, I mean, any sort of trade rumor you take on with a grain of salt, you put a whole rock salt on top of that when it's a Sam McClure rumor. But I did just want to bring that one up. Brody Myercheck, it does seem that Mitch Cleary has actually mentioned the fact that the Demons are coming hard for him. We did mention about Brody a minute ago. So Melbourne, a lot of turnover, I think, in this off-season with the new coach and Stephen King. And Stephen May looks like he's reportedly open to a move. Bit of a surprising one. I did mention it a couple of months ago, but I thought that he would still stay at the Demons. This actually doesn't have a source to it, so just keep an eye out for that one. This was from the AFL Destination, who post quite a lot of news content on Instagram regarding AFL. So May reportedly open to a move. Maybe. We'll have to wait and see. Jake Lever's been pretty settled now after being dropped earlier in the year. So that was when there were a couple of links going away. It does seem more than likely that if he was to move, it would be only on a multi-year contract. So, I mean, North Melbourne have money to burn, it seems, on key forwards and all that sort of stuff. Throwing a 3-year deal at Brody Myercheck. I would if I was a North Melbourne fan, I'd be saying, you direct that straight to Stephen May. Yes, Stephen May can have some issues, I understand, but they need a lot more of a defender right now than a forward, North Melbourne. So we'll see how that plays out. And sticking with the Roos, this is shocking in my opinion. I was absolutely dumbfounded when I heard about this. Apparently, Jai Simpkin, the North Melbourne captain, has discussed his frustrations with being played out of position with those around him. He does have a 4-year deal left on his deal that is averaged around $1 million a year, but clubs have made but he's willing to take a significant sacrifice to move clubs. His management has sounded out other clubs' gauge on interest for the midfielder. I am shocked, to be honest with you. I don't know who the hell could go next. Anyone in the bottom 4 teams that is a captain, I would be locking them away. Seriously. Like, literally lock them in a cage, lock the key, do not give them phone access, because any player could go at this. I understand Jai Simpkin, if this is true, Jai Simpkin's frustrations with not playing midfield time, but he's not going to get it. I'm going to be honest with him. I'm going to be honest with you guys. He's not going to get it. He's got LDU in there. He's got Tom Powell, the young brigade of Tom Powell, George Wardlaw when he's fit, obviously. You've got Harry Sheasel, of course. Then you got some younger guys coming through. Finn O'Sullivan, who probably go through there at some point in time. Then even Luke Parker's getting minutes in there. So Jai Simpkin, he's still getting CBAs. He's still getting midfield time, but he probably wants more. He probably wants to be a pivotal role in that midfield core. He's just not going to get it. They're putting their younger guys through there now. And if I'm being North Melbourne, I am being ruthless on this. And if I'm the Crows, I am going for him, because I think it suits both parties here. The Crows We've seen Jordan Butts be linked to being linked to a potential trade. I'd be putting that in the deal for North Melbourne. I'd be saying we need a key defender. Jordan Butts has shown really good promise throughout the years. Give him a reasoning. Come to North Melbourne. We're going to be building with you. Ask for maybe a potential other player and a top round pick. The Crows have a pretty high pick in this year's draft, I'm pretty sure. Or they have the first round pick. You ask for a first round pick. You ask for a player. You ask for a second round pick. You tell Jai Simpkin, hey, you want to leave? You're the captain. You're exploring your options. We're going to put it on the front foot. Maybe give him a choice of what club he wants to go to. But if I'm the Crows, I'd be going for him. And I know this may be a bit of an overstatement based on his last few years, but I think Jai Simpkin, at his best, we even saw it in the preseason, how good a midfielder he can be in the Indigenous All-Stars game. I think he can be an A-grader, Jai Simpkin, but he doesn't get the role in there for North Melbourne, which I understand, but the thing is he's not going to get it there. So if I'm on the front foot for North, I would just say, you got to go. And if you want to go, you pick a club that is going to suit us, is going to fit what we need. Because North Melbourne don't need midfielders. They don't need forwards. Stop going forward. They need defenders. If you could name me one defender in that team that is going to stop a Jezza Cameron from kicking 11 goals, oh, wait. That's the team that conceded 11 goals. Get a defender. Get a key defender and build the club around him. Or build a defense, a competent defense that is not going to concede 100 points every week. I get frustrated talking about North Melbourne sometimes because they've been down the bottom for so many years, and a lot of North Melbourne fans get angry at me when I get angry about where they are, but they've got to use this as a positive. If it is true that Jai Simpkin is exploring his options and he does find a club that want him, North Melbourne need to be ruthless and go, okay, we're going to take this, and this, 4 or 5, whatever you want, put that on the agenda and say, we are not letting our captain go unless you give us all of this, because he signed a long contract. He signed for 4 more years, so he was pretty well loyal, saying to the club, what's changed? Nothing's really changed, really. I mean, has he been offered, maybe he has been behind the scenes, been offered more midfield time, maybe he has, but surely it couldn't have been that much. And if that's the case, then I kind of understand. But yeah, I think North Melbourne need to be ruthless this trade period. If Jai Simpkin does want to go, you go hells deep, you go balls deep, and you get everything you can for him. Now, Mason Redmond may be the biggest, biggest blindside, really, because he came out last week when he heard about Zach Merritt's news that he was looking to leave or looking to explore his options, and he said it was pretty disappointing. However, just behind the scenes, Mason was just looking behind saying, can I move to another club too? He was saying, according to Tom Morris, it seems at least 3 clubs, both SA clubs and one other, has been weighing up a trade request earlier this year. They have asked whether they'd be interested in bringing him in as far as a certainty. There's no genuine market given his contract status at the moment. So this was made earlier in the year. So it looks like maybe more that Mason Redmond has decided that he will stay. I would be surprised if he left, because he did have, I think he signed the contract, was it late last year or the year before, when the Crows and Port Adelaide were looking at him. So I don't think he'll leave now. I think that this pretty much makes it the fact pretty similar to when we talked about Lachie Neale in the video, that he made a request, that there was an inquiry from West Coast mid-year, and he was quickly shut that down because he's like, why the fuck I want to go to Bro? Leave the fuck alone. Do not even talk to me. That's what Lachie Neale would have done, I'm sure. So I don't think Mason Redmond's leaving either. Jaden Laverde has been linked to the Giants. He has done a medical at GWS, so I think that move will be pretty inevitable at the start of the trade period or off-season period. He'll be gone. Then finally, I wanted to take a look at this post from Footy9 or Footy Classified, basically saying from what the Bombers should demand for Zach Merritt. So this is from Matthew Lloyd saying, the 4 players that at Hawthorn that would probably be untouchable are Will Day, Josh Weddle, Jai Newcomb, James Sicily. Pretty obvious ones, really. The best available, according to Matthew Lloyd, is Nick Watson, of course, the Wizard, Dylan Moore, who just re-signed, so you mark that one off, Connor McDonald, Lloyd Meek, Josh Ward, Cal Shadir, and Ham. Now, if I'm probably Essendon, I am more than likely going to be looking at either a key defender or a key forward. Key forwards, you got Mitch Lewis, really injury prone, but the promise is there. Cal Shadir, probably, I mean, the potential is there, probably a little bit too skinny at this moment, but definitely could build with the likes of Nate Caddy in that team. I think a really good combination. Maybe some midfield depth. We've obviously heard about Henry Huswaite from Hawthorn having a lot of interest from Essendon. I think that one's pretty inevitable at this point, that whatever deal that Essendon do, they ask for Henry Huswaite. Shown huge amount of promise in the VFL throughout the year, just hasn't been able to break into the main team too much. So I think that's what we're probably going to do. And I think similar to what I said about North Melbourne, Essendon need to be ruthless here with for Zach Merritt, because I really don't like the way he's done it. If he asked for a trade request at the end of the season and it was pretty much set up throughout the season that he's going to do it, I would be okay with what he's doing. But the fact that he's done it so sheepishly, so behind the scenes, everyone was pretty shocked by it. I don't really like the way he's done it. So we'll just see how that plays out. But if I'm Essendon, again, you got to be ruthless with this. Ask for multiple. You got the ball is in your court. And the thing is, I think clubs need to be a little bit more ruthless as well on players that are contracted. It's your job, and it is a very high-paying job what you're doing. If you're going to stay, if you signed a contract and they want to get, and they can't get rid of you for the price that they want, then the player just has to come back. And maybe Zach Merritt will be butthurt at first, but it will work out. A lot of players have come back after failed trade requests and have shined for their clubs. Most recently, probably Tom Papley for the Swans. I know before Tim Kelly did leave, he missed out on a trade the first year. Went back to Geelong, had a starring role in their team, and then got his trade request that he wanted. But he came back and had a brilliant season. So I think clubs need to be more open to the fact that if they don't get what they want, sorry, you're coming back. And I think clubs need to make that more clearer too. Need to just say, look, we can try and facilitate a trade for you, but you have to realize that if we don't get what we want, you're not going. And I think that'd be more than fair as well. Like, I think it's pretty obvious now. Zach Merritt can't be the captain next year for Essendon if he does stay. And if the stuff about Jai Simpkin is true, he can't be the captain either. You can't be looking to leave if you're going to be the captain of the club. That's just not going to happen for me. And I really don't like how the West Coast Eagles left Oscar Allen as the captain for the rest of the season as well. I think that was not a good move. They should have just dropped him of captaincy. And honestly, when he got injured, they should have just said he's leaving. They should have just said, look, Oscar, you can just request a trade. I think it would have been a long time ago, but I'm pretty sure Lockie Henderson for Carlton, when he wanted to go to Geelong, there was a couple of weeks left in the season, and Carlton weren't going to make finals, and he actually came out and said, look, I don't want to lie to people. I'm wanting to move to Geelong. And he just made that request, and he didn't play for the rest of the year, and then he moved to Geelong. And I think most people respected that. No one really stood there. Maybe a couple of Carlton fans were a bit upset, but most people were like, yep, whatever. That's what I think the norm should be, that a player's going to request trade. Maybe not before a season ends, and if you're fit enough, maybe that should be the norm. But I think it should be there should be some sort of, transparency regarding it. That's just my thoughts. Maybe I'm just a bloody idiot. Who the hell knows? Make sure to let me know. That's pretty much all the trade stuff we've got. I mean, that was bloody 20 minutes of trade talk, and we've gone from Monday afternoon until now. That's how crazy this crap is getting. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and keep up to date with all your trade updates, guys. But anyway, let's move on. Let's get to the preview to the new round. So, of course, the preview to the preliminary finals. I just wanted to add this to the start of the preview because, of course, we did the video on Tuesday. But I just want to bring up the fact that a couple of team news. First of all, on Collingwood, Bobby Hill seems all but certainly to be overlooked from being picked in the prelim final team. I'm not too surprised by this. I think maybe he'll be picked for the grand final, but I think at this point now, it's going to be pretty hard to see him being in the team. If he misses out on the prelim, I can't see him playing the grand final if they make it. So, one to keep an eye out on, but I would be very surprised. Imagine taking someone out of the team unless they're injured for Bobby Hill, who's been around the club for a couple of weeks now, returning. So, I really can't see that happening, but we'll have to wait and see. And Jeremy Howe and I think Brody Myercheck as well are tests for this week. So, Pies, they desperately need Jeremy Howe back. Yes, they were good against the Crows, and Darcy Moore played a standout game, but I don't think Brisbane will play into their hand like the Crows did in the qualifying final. So that's just a couple of bits of team news. So now let's get to the preview to the preliminary finals. These are probably some of the biggest finals we've had in more recent times. Some of them, all four of these teams have been probably the most successful in the last 15 years or so, minus maybe Sydney, who have been up there around the time. But overall, Hawthorn, Collingwood, Geelong and Brisbane are honestly some of the best clubs in the AFL era. And right now, all four of them are going to be facing off in the preliminary finals for this year. And if I'm being honest, whoever wins this grand final from here probably go down as the best team of the last 25 years. But let's go to the first preliminary final we're going to be taking a look at. Of course, it is Friday night, Cats up against Hawthorn. Now, these guys have had some massive rivalries in in previous years, obviously in the early 2010s to late 2000s, and it's probably starting to rekindle its great history once again. Now, Geelong have won their last 7 games of the season. Of course, they did have a pretty soft run going into finals, but a very good performance in their first final against Brisbane. While Hawthorn didn't have the greatest approach to finals, they did win only 2 of their last 4 games minor rounds. However, once they've hit the finals, they've hit a whole new level. Now, the Cats have won their last 4 games against the Hawks, but I don't think that really matters going to a prelim final like this. Now, let's get to the biggest storyline of probably the first 2 finals, which is the fact that John Newcombe has probably been the best final player of the last 2 years. He's had the top player rating of any player on the ground in the last 4 finals that he has played. So, who goes to it? Well, I think the big matchup will probably be Oisin Mullen. He's done some massive jobs in the past, especially throughout this season. Nick Dacos being probably the most notable, and I think that he has a job on John Newcombe. I can't see a way where Geelong let him just do his own thing and then go head to head. I think the Cats are one of the more smarter teams in the AFL, so I expect that Chris Scott will make a call pretty early that Mullen will go to Newcombe. And if that matchup doesn't work out for them, maybe the Cats will have to go elsewhere, maybe Tom Atkins, but I think that Mullen gets first dibs on John Newcombe. Now, if I'm looking for a matchup on the other side of things, Connor Nash did a reasonable job against Jordan Dawson last week, so I think he will likely go to either a Max Holm, Bailey Smith. Will he be able to keep up with them on pace? Maybe. I'm not too sure how well his tank will go. However, one thing that he can do is stay with stoppage. At the very least, just quell the influence. And then if they split off, well, try and follow as he can. But around the clearance, he has the best. And one of the biggest battles that I think will come out of this game is on the wing. Dempsey for Geelong and Weddle for the Hawks. Both of these guys have been brilliant for their respective sides throughout the final series so far. Weddle was especially good last week against Crows with his ball winning ability, as well as moving up forward and taking some clutch mark, kicking some goals as well. While on Geelong's point of view, and Ollie Dempsey has arguably been the best wingman of 2025. And in the qualifying final, he was probably best on the ground. He had 3 goals, 25 touches, 9 score involvements. So even though the most important matchup in this game would be whoever goes to Newcombe, I think that this could really decide the game. If Weddle has a massive performance, I can really see Hawthorn winning this one. But if Ollie Dempsey gets off the chain, then I think the Cats will run riot. But now let's get to our finals focus. So my finals focus for this week is eyeing Bailey Smith for Geelong and James Worpel for the Hawks. Now, Bailey Smith, first of all, was pretty good in the first final for Geelong, but he has to go to another level this week. He has gone through a lot throughout the media throughout the last 14 days or so, and it's probably deserved, but he needs to respond on the field. If he has a mediocre performance, the criticism of him over the last week or so is just going to be amplified, so he has to play a good game. While on James Worpel's point of view, we're all expecting that John Newcombe is going to be tagged, and the midfielders around the Hawthorn lineup need to stand up in John Newcombe's predicament of having to go up against one of the best taggers in the game. So I think it's time for James Worpel to stand up. He has been pretty serviceable in the first 2 finals, but if I'm being honest, he's probably one of the midfielders that needs to lift. And if Hawthorn are going to be able to cause an upset against the Cats, I think that it's time for James Worpel to stand up in a big way. Now, my brother's players in focus include Tyson Stengel for Geelong and Josh Battle for the Hawks. Now, on Tyson Stengel, first of all, he said he's seen him back to his 2022 All-Australian best this year. Had a bit of a downer in the qualifying final, but if he gets the ball early, he may be able to get an early goal and really get his game up and about. And he's one of the few players for Geelong that can really take the game from the Hawks quite quickly. So if Tyson Stengel can have a big game, he could be right back on that grand final stage like he was in 2022. And what a great story that was. If you actually don't know, he was actually a classmate of mine. I really like to make that point to make myself feel more important. Helped him out on homework a few times. So I don't want to say that I had an impact on his career, but I don't know if he makes that grand final team in 2022 if I don't help him with his maths work back in 2015. So look, guys, I just want to put it out there right now. I've clearly helped Geelong fans win that flag back in 2022. And I feel really bad about it because I'm a Swans fan who was on the end of that absolute thumping. But anyway, let's move to my brother's player in focus for Hawthorn, which is Josh Battle. Being one of the best one-on-one defenders throughout the entirety of the season, will likely get the Cameron matchup, which is going to be pivotal in Hawthorn's potential upset in this game. When Cameron rolls up the ground, though, need to make Battle that spare player in defence. So my brother's suggestion is the fact that Josh Battle does not follow Cameron around the ground, stays back in defence and plays that role as an intercept defender. I think that's a really good way to rebound off the half-back line, and then they can get the ball to the likes of Weddle on one wing or even Josh Ward on the other, who had a brilliant game against Adelaide. But now let's get to our tips. So my tip for this game in the prelim final, Cats v Hawthorn, is Geelong to win by 22 points. I just think the Cats will profit the most out of any team having the week off, with players like Dangerfield, Stewart and Cameron really using that rest to full effect, I believe. And I think after last year's heartbreaking prelim final against the Lions, I think it's time for Geelong to get back to the grand final stage. We've seen quite a few times under Chris Scott's era that they've done really well in their first final, but when they reach that prelim final, they have, I wouldn't say choked, because I don't think they've lost those games in massive losses, but they haven't been able to get to that grand final stage as often as they probably should be. So I think that this is a time where the Cats have to stand up, and I think they will be there on grand final day. Now, my brother's tip for this game is the Cats by 8 points. He says that Mullen gets the job done on John Newcombe. Would like to see another Hawthorn midfielder take over, but he doesn't believe that the Hawks have that midfield depth to cover. Connor Nash will likely go to Holmes, in my brother's opinion, but it may change to Bailey Smith if he does get off the chain. And he thinks whoever wins in the midfield battle will likely win the game. So he's really eyeing that the Cats will win the midfield battle. But for now, let's get to the second preliminary final, Collingwood up against Brisbane. The 2023 grand final rematch, as you could call it. These two teams have played in some massive finals in previous years and grand finals as well. But this game is going to decide who makes this grand final in 2025. Now, Collingwood were terrific in their first game of the final series against the Crows. Their pressure was immense and they suffocated Adelaide to really gave them no chance of a comeback. If they are going to put on that sort of pressure and ferocity on the ball in this prelim final, then I think they can book themselves a spot in the granny. Now, on the Lions' point of view, every single time Brisbane have had a poor performance this year or have been well beaten, they have responded in red-hot fashion. And yes, last week against the Gold Coast, they weren't at their exact best, the Suns, but I'd argue that the Lions really didn't let the Gold Coast in that game whatsoever. They just shut them down pretty much from the 10-minute mark of the opening term and never let the Suns back in the game. So I think it was a real mature performance from Brisbane. After a poor performance that first week, they really responded in good fashion. Now, a few matchups that I want to take a look at in this game, which I think are most important for both sides. So first of all, on the Lions, I think it's who Josh Dunkley goes to. He usually goes to the biggest bullocking midfielder of the opponent, and I think the guy he needs to go to in this game is Jordan De Goey. De Goey's had a really good few weeks since returning, and has really added a nice spark through that midfield for the Pies. So I think after a massive performance against Matt Rowell last week, Josh Dunkley, I think that he's the man to really shut down Jordan De Goey. I think probably Nick Dacos has got a little bit too fleet of foot for Josh Dunkley, so I think the matchup for him is definitely go to Jordan De Goey. And on Collingwood's point of view, I think the matchup that they need to get right to win this game is who goes to Logan Morris. And I think the Pies captain needs to take this role. And this leads me to my finals focus for this game. So my finals focus for the Pies is Darcy Moore, and for Brisbane, it's Charlie Cameron. So Darcy Moore, first of all, he was probably the best game of his career in that first final. However, the Crows made it super easy for him to have a blinder of a game, as the Crows simply had no method going forward. They bombed long and high, and Darcy Moore just had a license to leave his opponent and take easy intercept mark after easy intercept mark. So if the Pies are going to win this game, Darcy Moore needs to continue on that really good form, and he needs to shut down the biggest threat in the Brisbane Lions forward line in Logan Morris. So if Darcy Moore can lock him down, I think it goes a long way in the Pies going to win this game. And on Charlie Cameron's point of view, I know this may be a bit harsh, but I truly think that Charlie Cameron has been a passenger in that Brisbane Lions forward line for the majority of the season, but right now he is clinging into that passenger's seat. And if Brisbane are going to go back-to-back this year, he needs to start hitting the scoreboard. Now, last week he did help provide a lot of scoring opportunities, had about 9 score involvements for Brisbane, one of their best in the scoring involvements category, but he's at his best when he is their number one guy, when he is kicking goals for the Lions, and he needs to simply not be any more of a passenger. If the Lions are going to win this game and go on to win the grand final, he needs to start kicking goals. I would say a minimum of 6 goals over the next 2 weeks for if the Brisbane Lions are going to win the premiership. So he needs to start being that player. He needs to start being the man of the forward line. Now, my brother's players in focus for the finals include Collingwood's Nick Dacos and Hugh McCluggage for the Lions. Now, Nick Dacos, first of all, he's a big weapon this season when he's using the ball inside the forward 50. Doesn't miss a target, as we all know. So my brother's bringing up the fact that the Lions need to go with a hard tag on Nick Dacos, or else Nick Dacos is just going to slice through the Lions throughout the night. So interesting to see if they will go with a matchup like that. They've done some sort of roles like Berry has gone to him at times. It'll be interesting to see what the Lions have in store for Nick Dacos. And on Hugh McCluggage, he gives him a lot of comparisons to Caleb Sarong. If you do tag McCluggage out of a game, you can win. We saw that in that first final with Geelong up against Brisbane, with Geelong putting a lot of work into Hugh McCluggage, had little impact, and that matchup went a long way in the Cats winning. But the Pies tend not to tag, so this is going to be an interesting one for them. Now, my brother's actually made a suggestion as to who could play a role on Hugh McCluggage, and he's actually brought up the name of Jack Crisp. So an interesting matchup, like to see how that one one would work out. But he simply says that they can't let Hugh McCluggage have 25 plus disposals or 10 clearances as he did against the Suns, or he'll simply just run this game forward for the Lions. But now let's get to our tips. So my tip for this game is the Lions by 10 points. I'm actually going to put the heater on the Pies, to be honest. Yes, this is at the MCG, but we simply have to remember the fact that the win over Adelaide in their first final, before that point, Collingwood were in pretty terrible form, and a lot of people were expecting them to go out in straight sets. Now, I wasn't one of those people in the camp. However, after that win against the Crows, it still didn't prove to me that the Pies are an actual contender this year. Because if we're being real, the Crows have proven to us pretty quickly that they have been the worst team in the final series so far. They didn't win a quarter across their two finals, and every single other team in the final series has actually won a final. Even Fremantle and the Giants in their weeks when they went out straight away, they still won a quarter in those games. Crows won none of them. Even though the Crows were the minor premiers, they did not win a final, and they were probably the worst performing team in the final series. So Collingwood, yes, it was a very good win. That was a strong performance, but they've beaten the worst team in the final series. So they need to back it up, and they need to perform well against the Brisbane Lions if I see them as a premiership threat. And right now, I think the Lions are still my premiership favourites. I've said it throughout the entire year. I'm backing the Lions for another win. They've had that poor game against the Cats. I think they respond in red hot fashion back at the MCG, where their first finals loss was for this year. I think they respond, they win, and the Brisbane Lions go on to the grand final. However, if Collingwood do get up in this game, I have much more belief in Collingwood going all the way. But right now, with only a win against the Crows so far, I really rank them below Hawthorn in premiership favouritism right now. It probably goes for me Brisbane, Geelong, Hawthorn, and then Collingwood in fourth. But now my brother's tip for this game, he has gone with the Lions by 3 points. He said there's been an upset every single week of this final series so far, and he thinks this one is the upset. So he doesn't think that Collingwood will tag a player, but he thinks that at the very least the Lions will negate Dacos's influence and stoppage with Dunkley. I've more leaned to the fact that he will go to DeGoey, but my brother thinks more Josh Dunkley. Had a record 18 tackles last week, Dunkley. If Brisbane bring that sort of pressure, he doesn't think that any side can compete with that, hence why he's picking the Brisbane Lions in the second preliminary final. So me and my brother are both expecting that the Lions and the Cats will be going up against each other in this year's grand final. So now guys, we don't have a flog of the week this week. It's been pretty busy, so I haven't been able to look for really much flog of the weeks. I mean, just pick any one of your least favorite journos, put it in the comments, and I'll make that one the flog of the week finals. But we do, of course, have my brother's betting segment, and because it's only two finals, last week he gave us 2 same game multis. He's given us 2 same game multis for this week as well. So, of course, for the Friday night contest, Geelong v Hawthorn, he has gone with a 4-legger for the same game multi in that game. He has gone for Jarman Impey to get 20 or more disposals, Josh Ward to get 20 or more as well, Zach Guthrie for 15 plus disposals, and Nick Watson for an anytime goal scorer. That will bank you $5.25. On the other game, of course, Collingwood up against Brisbane, another 4-leg multi. He's gone with Will Ashcroft for 25 or more disposals, Jasper Fletcher for 20 plus, Braden Maynard for 15 plus disposals, along with Harry Perryman for 15 plus, and that will bank you $6.25. Now we move on from that, get to our certainty bet, which is Zach Bailey for 20 plus disposals. That is going to net you $1.44 for your certainty bet. And outside the boundary bet, so of course something a little bit outlandish, my brother has gone with Brian Myers for 25 or more disposals. That will bank you $4.60. But of course, guys, with any sort of bets, make sure to gamble responsibly, and make sure to let me know how good I read that bet, because I thought that was freaking spot on. And if he thinks that he can do better than me and my brother, then I'll make him eat more chilies, guys, because that was bang on. But guys, that's pretty much all we've got for the podcast this week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe over on YouTube. We're growing this channel actually quite quickly, the second channel. We're nearly at 250 subscribers. I will apologize for last week's audio. There was a bit of an issue on my end. I think it was my microphone. So I'm going to be trying to sort that out. It's okay usually when it's a solo podcast, but when it's twice, it just has a bit of an issue. But nonetheless, thank you. Like and subscribe on YouTube and on Spotify. We are growing over there. I think we've got about 20 or 30 followers over there, which is pretty decent for Spotify. So if you're over there, make sure to leave us 5 stars and make sure to follow so you're notified on the podcast every single week. But again, guys, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We'll catch you all next week.